intelligence of Americans and also their knowledge of this case. Because when they first released those documents, they must have felt that that would satiate people's curiosity to understand the Epstein case, and it did not. And then there was a huge blowback. So,
but there was nothing in those documents that hadn't already been released. Is that correct?
Nothing new. No new revelations whatsoever. As I said, I've released more revelations in 2015 than she did in 2025.
Do you believe that there is a file list?
I believe that there are files. I don't believe that it was like the Jeffrey Epstein travel agency, and he kept a list of his clients on his refrigerator with them. But I believe that there's definitely a tremendous amount of documentation and also video evidence that there are Epstein files, and if the government really came clean with the Epstein files and what's on the 300 gigabytes, I think that we would really find out who the perpetrators are. Conspirators are. We know a number of them already, but we have definitive proof.
Let's talk a little about what we do know, and I want you to talk about the affidavit that was about the woman under a pseudonym in California that was leveled against Trump. But from what you released, from what we know, we do have some sense of what these video records may reveal. Can you talk about that? And let's begin with just the Trump case.
When I put the black book up on the internet, the black book was all. And he tried to sell it to one of the attorneys that was launching civil suits at Epstein, and the attorney called the FBI, and the FBI did a sting and impounded the black book. And then I ultimately came by the black book through one of the attorneys. And Alfredo Rodriguez had circled a number of names in the black book of people that he thought were in cahoots with Trump. And then there was Virginia.
You mean with Epstein?
With Epstein. And then we also had the lawsuit documentation of Virginia Giuffre. Maxwell sued her for defamation, and she countersued. And Virginia named a number of her perpetrators in a lawsuit. And this is where we can get double corroboration. For example, Alfredo Rodriguez circled Glenn Maxwell, who was definitely a perpetrator and a pimp. And Giuffre named her as a perpetrator and a pimp. Alfredo Rodriguez circled Ehud Barak, perpetrator and a rather nasty character. Les Wexner's name is circled by Rodriguez, and Virginia Giuffre named him as a perpetrator. Alan Dershowitz's name is circled, and Virginia Giuffre named him as a perpetrator. And Bill Richardson's name is circled, and Giuffre named him as a perpetrator. His former New Mexico governor, and he was also the Clinton's energy czar. And Jean-Luc Brunel's name is circled, and he and Epstein put together started a modeling agency called MC Square. And Brunel,
let me interrupt, Nick, because it was copied on Trump's modeling agency.
Yes. And that agency, Jean-Luc Brunel was buying girls in Eastern Europe, not renting them, but actually buying them. And he was bringing them into the United States. Affidavit that she swore in 2015, Epstein and Brunel had some kind of connection with the State Department or some mechanism in the government where they were able to get either visas or passports for these girls who, some of them were, well, Virginia says they're as young as 12, and there's another report that they're 11 and 12, but then I know of other people that, I know therapists who have counseled Epstein victims, and we can get into that later. And actually, a lot of those victims were, or a number of those victims were under the age of 10. Donald Donald Trump's name
But
is
he
also
got some
circled.
obviously.
I haven't
But
found
he
any
ain't gonna
corroboration
but he
that he
got
was a
some
knife killing perpetrator. There was a case launched by Kate Johnson, who's in California, and she said that she had been abused by Trump and Epstein, and there was an accompanying affidavit by the woman in Tiffany Doe who said that she recruited her. But it's very difficult to know what exactly went on there because she was, I guess, was threatened. And Lisa Bloom represented her. From what I've been told, she was deposited in a hotel. This is when Trump and Hillary were in the home stretch. And she was deposited in a hotel, and then Lisa Bloom picked her up the next morning and said, "We're going to go to a press conference." And she wasn't ready for that. Now, that's what I've been told.
Now, Nick, she was 13.
She was 13.
Katie Johnson is a pseudonym.
Yes.
In the affidavit, she said that apparently Trump liked to watch Epstein's orgies while he got a hand job. That he complained about the oral sex given to him by apparently this 13-year-old and 12-year-old.
Girl named Maria. I don't think we ever found out her age, but she was around 12, 13. And here's the problem with that. I spent 3 years looking for Kate Johnson, and I ultimately found her. And I sent her some emails. I found her about a year and a half ago, and I sent her some emails, and she will not respond to me. And she's put together a decent life for herself. She's selling real estate in the Southwest. She's got a boyfriend. You can see how her life's unfolded on Facebook, and she goes to Europe with her boyfriend occasionally. So she's put together a really comfortable life for herself, and she doesn't want to talk to anybody about it. And
what didn't she get? I don't know to which point this is alleged, but wasn't she paid off?
we don't know. It's the threats and then the press conference that really decided that when she decided that she was going to recant everything that she said. Unfortunately, because of how she was handled, it's very difficult to know exactly what went on, and that's why I looked for her for 3 years. Is I really wanted to know her story, but I just she wouldn't get back to me, so I don't know what to make of that. Of the affidavit.
All right, the charge is out there.
Yes.
But let's talk a little bit about what we
But I
do
think
know about Dershowitz, for instance, who makes these claims that he only traveled on the Lolita Express with his wife. Even though the flight logs is exposing that to be untrue. But what do we do know about what happened, what these powerful men did within?
Well, Dershowitz is long been a misogynist, for sure. And what happened with Dershowitz is Virginia Giuffre submitted an affidavit and said that she had been molested by him up to approximately 6 times. And then Dershowitz went on an offensive against her 2 attorneys, Brad Edwards and Paul Cassell. And Cassell had been a former federal judge. And Dershowitz was pounding on his chest saying, "I'm going to get their licenses to practice law. I'm going to make sure that they never practice law again. I only fly with my clients. She flies everywhere with me." Well, then I got the flight logs, and actually, Dershowitz has taken lots of flights with girls like Tatiana and Claire, and his wife is noticeably absent from those flight logs. And in the
देखिए but David Enoch from there on also represent my country.
And his steel trap life became rather rusty because he couldn't remember those girls.
1.5 million हो गया था view है तेरा post. 1.5 million views. Oh, hey, Epstein
And
files it.
actually, this one we asked him. But there was another third one that was, I heard the last name was unknown. And he decided to refuse it with humor. He said, that could have been my mother. So what Berger was, and he's lobbied for the 80% in 14, regardless of the. No, I didn't know. I would figure it was ABC fake news that would ask that question, one of the worst. But no, I don't know really why. But I said, if he's taking anybody from our and he's hiring or whatever he's doing, I didn't like it, and we threw him out. We said we don't want him, at the place. This is a story that's been going for many years, I think. But it's, I didn't like it that he was doing that. Yeah, please.
of these victims opposes releasing this material. What they're asking for is to make sure that victims are protected. And they write, quote, why not be completely transparent, showing all the files with only the necessary redactions, be done with that bit, and allow us/me to heal. They're also criticizing the government for what they say is a lack of respect.
ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਪੈਣ ਜੀ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਲੋਕ ਫਾਈਨਲੀ ਜੋ ਹੈ ਸਿਕਿਉਰਿਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਖਤਰਾ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਪਿਆ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਅੰਨੀਆਂ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਦੇਖ ਨਾਲ ਸਿਕਿਉਰਿਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ
ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ ਮਗਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਵੀ ਹਰ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਖਤਰਾ ਹੈ ਉਹੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਲਿਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ he was using thousands of agents to protect his identity and those of other wealthy, high-profile individuals. He also took aim at the current Justice Department, saying that it appears that it is more interested in talking with Ghislaine Maxwell, a quote, convicted imprisoned sex trafficker, than in speaking with victims. Now here the judge is weighing whether to release these transcripts, and the Justice Department has acknowledged there wasn't a lot of evidence presented to the jury.
ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਪਿਆ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਉਹ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਕੁੜੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੂਸਰੇ ਮੁਲਕਾਂ ਚੋਂ ਵੀ ਪਾਸਪੋਰਟ ਤੇ ਲਿਆਇਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਸੀ ਵੀਜ਼ੇ ਤੇ ਪਾਸਪੋਰਟ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਦੇ ਗਹਿਰੇ ਹੱਥ ਸਨ ਇਸਰਾਈਲ ਦੇ
All right, Paula, thank you very much. And of course, in Paula's talks about the grand jury testimony, just to remind everybody, it's really based on the testimony of two officials. So it's dropped in the bucket of what's in the files. So to be very clear, while it's good to have that, it is dropped in the bucket of what actually is out there and what needs to be known. And it all comes here with 2 weeks after 3 Republicans joined Democrats in the House Oversight Committee to subpoena the DOJ to release some of that same files. But here's the thing, you might say, okay, well, that's 3 weeks ago, so what happened? The good question, the Republican chairman, because we still have not issued that subpoena, even though we need to do so. So fascinating now is Democratic Congressman Robert Garcia of California, top Democrat on the Oversight Committee. And Congressman, obviously you and I spoke, 10 days ago, 11 days ago, James Comer, Republican chairman of your committee, had said he can move quickly on that subpoena. And I know you had a good faith conversation, right? You agreed to do it, and you said you're going to hold me to it. So, do you know what's going on here?
We're in very close contact. We just spoke actually last Friday, and we think that we're likely a day or two away, a couple of days from the subpoena release. We've seen and gone back and forth with some of the language. We've had discussions about getting this out as fast as possible. Now, look, we think it should have already been out and issued. We put that pressure on. We also know that James Comer has been very clear that it's going to be sent out. They're essentially almost there. And so we are taking him by his word, but the clock is ticking. So we hope we are days away from this release. He's very aware that it needs to happen.
All right, so when you talk about the wording and the wordsmithing, is the final wording such that you understand that it's going to be a subpoena, that you say that Chairman Comer has told you within, I guess, the last business day, Friday, right, it's going to go out in the next couple of days. Is it for everything?
It's the full file document video. A couple pieces are really important. I think some of this speaks to what you just reported. It's very important and why this is also a little complicated. If we want to ensure that what we get is also centers the victims. We don't want to have to re-victimize or re-traumatize the victims. And so ensuring that that is redacted, that information is done very carefully. But the subpoena is clear to the motion that Democrats made is going to be very, very important. So that's what we have been pushing with Chairman Comer and, of course, the House Republicans. Their protection and centering justice for the victims is really important in this part of the process.
Mm-hmm. So how do you deal with the victimizers, right? I mean, I understand there would be an argument made, well, if there isn't enough to actually charge man A, man B, really wealthy people in Palm Beach, whoever these people may be, then do you redact the names or not? But obviously, what people want to know here is not to re-victimize. They want to hold to account the people who engaged in assault who weren't named Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell. Is that going to happen?
Yes, and that's exactly right. And that is our goal as well. Look, at the end, clear that Donald Trump is covering something up. It's clear that Donald Trump is involved in some sort of cover-up at the White House, the DOJ. We know that Donald Trump is in the files. The DOJ has told him that. We also know that there are other powerful people. We should not care who they are, the power they hold, how much wealth they have, what political party they're in. But those victims deserve justice. The full files should be released to the public. And of course, we should protect the victims along the way. But at this point, this is something the president campaigned on. We now have a bipartisan vote on the Oversight Committee to get the files released. And so it's important that James Comey sign that subpoena immediately and get the files in front of the Congress.
All right, so then last week, Ghislaine Maxwell, the week before that, she met with the DOJ, Todd Blanche. She meets with him a couple of times, right? 2 days, 2 long meetings. They say, DOJ said she mentions 100 people. The files. But yet, not something where you could have convicted child sex offender serving 20 years in prison. Never. No precedent for any such thing. And no precedent for anybody being moved so quickly in the system and so efficiently. So what do you think happened here? I mean, it smells bad. Is it really bad?
We're very concerned about this. I mean, to be clear, there's no reason why Ms. Maxwell was moved. And this has happened right after that DOJ meeting, of course, with essentially Donald Trump's personal former lawyer, Mr. Blanche, and that meeting that happened over the course of those 2 days. And so what does, of course, Ms. Maxwell want? She wants a pardon. She wants a reduced sentence. And then she gets moved to a essentially a less secure prison, a place that is actually she can walk around more, have more freedom of her movement. That is not acceptable. She's not eligible for that type of move. We have been engaging with the Bureau of Federal Prisons and asking them tough questions. Did the DOJ request this? And something the president himself ordered to get done for Ms. Maxwell. She's a sex trafficker. We know this already. She has caused major harm to victims, to the women, to girls. And so why she's getting moved is a concerning pattern of some on the right in trying to somehow line out Ms. Maxwell, give her some cover, or somehow later line her for some type of reduced sentence. And so, for what? For what happens? Because she may be essentially keep her focus off Donald Trump, or because these others who are not Donald Trump or Donald Trump's so-called associates or friends. These are all questions that need to be investigated, which is why we need to actually get the files and make them available to the public. We just cannot take Ms. Maxwell's word for it, whatever she's going to testify or either purpose on. We got to the file ourselves.
I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you again. We'll look at taking a look on that in the next couple of days as I know in the conversations with Charlie Color indicated.
So I did the best to know how to detail well, enjoyed the time, but I assured you that we working together and not falling in line to make certain that we were perfect and reflective of what
2014, Phil Washington's arrest is from 19 was born prior to dying in jail. And in those tapes, first public medical evidence, Nick says Epstein told him numerous times and numerous stories about his close friendship with Trump. Here he is 2 years before his death. In audio clip shared with us by Michael Moore. This is in 2017. Different ways and times and quotas. And Michael Wolff is out on that. Here's the author of All or Nothing, How Trump Wake Up for America. And like I really grateful for your time. I'm grateful for you sharing some of this with us with our show. So you guys take the talk actually the Vote for the Actors, which is absolutely incredible in and of itself. You did a lot of interviews all the way up to his arrest in 2015. Did you, and amid all these conversations, did you get a chance to talk about whether Trump was aware of Epstein's crimes?
Yes, as a matter of fact, their relationship ended in 2004. And it ended because he had a dispute over real estate. There was a house in Palm Beach that Epstein thought he was the top bidder on, along with his friend Trump. He looked at the house and advised him on moving this back, and overbid him and got the house. Epstein believed at that time that Trump didn't have the money to do this, and he started to make noise that Trump was fronting for someone, potentially a Russian oligarch. He believed then that in retribution, Trump went to the police, informed the police about what was going on at Epstein's house in Palm Beach. That is to say, a string, hosts, a never-ending line of younger women coming into his house. So that was exactly, so Trump very precisely knew what was going on there. I've also discussed it in several places that I have seen that Epstein showed me pictures. He had about a dozen snapshots, Polaroids, as I will call, of Trump with women on beach. Three of them I remember. Two were of Trump sitting with topless girls of indeterminate age in his lap, and one in which he has a stain on the front of his pants. The girls, three or four girls, mostly topless, are bent over, pointing to the lap.
So I point out this to you're of course aware of the evidence of wrongdoing by Trump into it. But Michael, in light of all of this that you say you see in the conversations, I want to play another clip from the interviews with Epstein.com, where Epstein told you that Trump would try to sleep with some of Trump's friends' wives and basically fight for you. So Epstein, in this clip here, is basically mimicking Trump. He's giving an example to you, something Trump would have said to him. Here it is.
He's a public figure. And it's a so
There's obviously Jeffrey Epstein's voice, telling the story where that he said Trump would have done it. Essentially, I guess, would be ready of America in a case like this. And Michael, people have long claimed Trump did this. Have someone listening on the phone during conversations where there's one spouse talking about cheating on the other. What more did he tell you about Trump?
Well, Matthew Epstein spoke rather at length about this. I mean, this was, let's remember the context. They were friends from the late 80s through to 2004. This was a period in American life when the models were this in the zeitgeist, supermodels, people wanted to be models, and these two men, Epstein and Trump, this was their obsession. They were, I think it was probably the most important part of their lives. Women and money and models. They were invested in modeling agencies together. They started modeling agencies. Trump obviously had his beauty pageants. Epstein was involved with Victoria's Secret models. This was an abiding obsession. They spent an enormous amount of time chasing models, figuring out how to be with models, figuring out how to get models to like them. And people have said to me, "Well, you don't mean Donald Trump liked little girls." And what I say, what I mean is that they were like models. What was the age of models? Trust me, they didn't ask for IDs.
You've told a lot of stories, Michael, you say here in your recordings with Epstein, that you haven't yet released. Epstein told you, for example, that he shared a girlfriend with Trump, actually for quite a period of time, and that they would have competitions about who would sleep with a woman first. These are all things you say he talked to you about. He also talked to you about his ex-girlfriend, Stacey Williams. Now, Stacey Williams actually was on this show last week. She shared a disturbing incident that she says she had with Trump. And this is in 1993. She said this, Donald was outside of his door, and his hands were all over. They're on my breast, they're on my butt, they're on my hips, up and down, from the tip. Just kept having a normal conversation. Jeffrey's energy had changed. He was like seething, he was enraged. So Michael Trump obviously has denied her allegation. He stated,
I'm trying to remember. There is so much that I don't necessarily remember him talking specifically about Stacey Williams. I do remember when she first came forward, which was in late October. That was the impetus for me to begin to release tapes.
with her coming forward with her story. All right, let me ask you, when you mentioned that your story, you're saying that she was pretty participant. But when you released that Trump's team did attack you with all the audio of outlandish false rumors, they said that Trump flew Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago, not because of a real estate deal going on as you described it, but because that's what they say Trump learned about the sex trafficking allegations, and that he found out the race was now free, so they threw Epstein out. And we heard the White House repeat this version of events in recent days. What do you say to that?
Well,
mean, the White House is clearly looking to do anything to close down this story, anything to distance Donald Trump from Jeffrey Epstein, and for good reason, because they were so close for so long. I mean, what they're saying is I think it's absolute, it's not true, it's baloney. What is credible is the details of Epstein's story about this house, which in fact Donald Trump did buy, and then bought for $40 million and sold within less than 2 years for $95 million.
All right, Michael, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Appreciate you sharing that on the show. Thank you. House Speaker Mike Johnson sent members home early for a month-long recess to stop what we have seen playing out, this bipartisan push to release the Epstein documents. Then, in a surprise move, a key House subcommittee is led. Voted to subpoena the Justice Department to release the files. Now needs a sign off from the House Oversight Chair, James Comer. That may be likely, given Comer is also moving ahead with a subpoena to depose Jeffrey Epstein's former associate, Elaine Maxwell, who is a convicted sex trafficker herself and is currently serving a prison sentence in Florida. House Speaker Mike Johnson, though, put a question and cast doubt on whether or not she could be